All right, so let's talk about something that made everybody have a conversation, especially because you and I started off in Hollywood doing the whole acting thing.
Uh-huh.
So Taraji P. Henson, who's the star of the new Color Purple, the musical
I
movie.
haven't seen it yet, but I never really like musicals like that.
Well, Taraji P. Henson was asked why does she work so much and potentially would she be retiring because that's the rumor around town. She responded saying tearfully that she wasn't getting paid enough and that she has to work so much in Hollywood to do a bunch of movies and TV shows just to keep up because every time she does another project and she breaks another barrier, they tell her that she's just essentially not enough, and she always has to start back at the beginning, and she's just not getting paid enough. So that kind of affected, I believe, the rollout for the Color Purple movie.
I think it made people want to go see it, right? Made them want to go support
No,
it. No,
it bombed.
it did.
Yeah, it bombed. But just in the box office, it'll make money somewhere else.
Oh yeah,
But
put it on HBO Max.
yeah,
People
yeah,
watch
yeah.
it.
Something will happen. But ultimately, she said all of that, and it sparked this whole career of black women in Hollywood just not making enough money and people disrespecting them. And I'll give you one example. She said that she was in one of my favorite movies, Benjamin Button.
Yeah, I love that movie. She did so good.
She
was
did
nominated
great.
for an Oscar.
Yes. And she got paid $150,000. It was a negotiated amount because they wanted to pay her $100,000. I think she asked for $200,000, and they landed on $150,000. Meanwhile, Brad Pitt got paid $20 million for his role in Benjamin Button.
That's understandable. I would say instead of comparing it to Brad Pitt, we should look at probably Kate Blanchett because she played a love interest, which is another supporting character. Brad was the lead, and his face was on the movie. And Taraji, I don't think she had that much behind her when Benjamin Button came out. That was like her first
White movie.
yeah. And remember Hilary Swank, I think got paid like $50,000 for when she played. I didn't see the movie, but she played a boys like this, or when her head was shaved, Hilary Swank, or Mustard Million Dollar Baby. I know she got paid like so. I think there's different things. Our industry works because we're in this industry. I'm in the reality side. So you have to negotiate your contracts or your people that you have in charge. They have to negotiate what you want. They have to because there's a lot of because it comes from like I understand what she's saying. She wants the accolades, which she has, but she also wants the money to go with it. She wants to be treated like the superstar, like everybody else on her level is, and she should. She definitely should. Black women should. And I saw this thing on Facebook where they're comparing her to Ellen Pompeo, who's been on Grey's Anatomy for 1920 season, which is still not a good comparison. She needs a team. She needs a team that's going to ask her what she wants, but she has to also be ready to not get it. And then go from there. It's sad because there's not so many roles, I think, still, especially prominent roles for black actresses and actors. They usually go to the same people, and she's one up there. So they will probably try to pass it off on somebody else and lowball them. But it's whatever's in your contract. But we all suffer through that. Like I didn't haven't worked. My show ended November, so I have to wait for another show and like still put my feelers out there. Like most like actors and writers and production people and all of us, we all have to like once one show ends, now we have to start to find a new show. We have to get a new job. We have to get a new gig. It's the cycle of our work. She talks about working for long hours, which is the industry, of course. But when she says she didn't have a car service, you have to ask for that. From my side, I'm in production, right? So if there's talent, right, the producer's talent, they will tell us what that person wants, and the line producers will see if it's in the budget and if we can afford it, and if we have to have it, then the line producer will move money around so that we can make sure that we make this happen for our star or for the person that's not even a star, but for the talent, right? But she talks about being there long hours and not having to drive herself. there are also so many people that work behind the scenes. I know the actor is they are the product, but you have the grips and you have the people who are there at that work in 14, 16 hours that don't get overtime as well, that have to be there after you leave and still have to drive themselves home as well. So I don't know. Maybe I'm coming looking at it because I work on set, so I'm like, when I hear that kind of complaint and I know that you can ask for it, you can ask for it.
But what
And
if
if
they
they
say
say
no?
if they say no, then either you have to see if that job is right for you, if you want to do this type of thing, or you go over, hey, you go to the next boss. You go to the next boss. If your name carries that weight, then you go to the next boss. That's what you have to do. You have to keep going until you get what you want. But I think a lot of things could have been solved with just asking for it. It sounded like she was like, oh, we didn't have this and we didn't have that. Boza, did you ask for that in your contract? Did you ask for you wanted a car service? Because a lot of times they will have PAs. I mean, I work in reality, so it may be different on scripted. PAs, they're ready to drive you back to your hotel. Or some people I know for our show, they want their own car. They want their own vehicle. They want to drive themselves. So there's some people that want different things. You know what I mean? And on every set you go to, everyone's gonna complain about what? Now they should have got fed. I heard that they didn't get fed. That's stupid. That's dumb. Or that they had to prepare all in the same room. They had to get ready in the same room or something like that, which is probably a space thing. Maybe they rented out a space big enough where they thought, oh, okay, well, we can put this person right here, this person right there, this person right here. Comparison is the thief of all joy. And I think sometimes we get to a point where we're all just kind of comparing, where we miss the blessings that are right in front of our faces. You know what I mean? I think sometimes that kind of happens, but I think she has every right to ask for what she wants. That she has every right. Viola Davis, her, Carrie. We have so many. Angela Bassett. We have so many great black actresses and actors that get looked over and not making the right amount of money and what they should. And we need to change that. But I don't know. That was my take.
I feel like in the case of Taraji not getting paid enough across the board from Benjamin Button up until Color Purple, is there's a case to be made on every side. So if we take Benjamin Button, for example, and we say, well, she only got paid $150,000 versus Brad Pitt's $20 million. Now, how about I start from the case of Taraji? If I was her, I think she has a legitimate case, but two things I think are glaring, and a lot of people make this mistake when they talk about business, finances, and personal desire. So first, I don't think that the complaint without the solution is the best way to move forward.
Yep.
If you don't feel like 150,000 was not the correct amount, I think that we have to have a conversation with actual figures and numbers to dictate how much is the right amount. Now, granted, she did negotiate for 200,000. Is that what you wanted, or is that what you were pushing for? If you got 200,000, would you have complained about it? Would you have felt like it wasn't enough? And it sounds like it because you're comparing your $150,000 to Brad Pitt's $20 million.
Which I don't think is a fair comparison.
And it's not a fair comparison. The second thing is, in these conversations, no one ever talks about residuals, ever. And in big movies like Benjamin Button, she's going to be eating off of that movie for a very, very long time. It's not something that just because she got paid that $150,000, she'll never get residuals again. Sorry, but that's just a part of the union, and they're not going to buy her out. It's not a commercial.
Yeah, it's not a buyout.
Yeah, she's going to get paid residuals, and it just is what it is.
It was a studio film, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it definitely wasn't some indie movie. I mean, it made a lot of money, and it made money over the years. So for sure,
And
I
did she
don't know.
negotiate box office, like getting stuff from the box office? Because some people can do that.
I'm not gonna go down the negotiation path because I feel like
Would not hurt her team.
in many cases, you can negotiate your way out of a job, and then ultimately, there's so many actresses in LA. Somebody will take whatever you didn't want to take,
Absolutely.
and then when it works for them, now it's gonna piss you off even more. So I don't think it's right for me to go down the negotiation path. However, there's one thing that she said that I feel really hurt her case. So she mentioned that after tax, after she paid her team, she was left with not that much money. And she ended up having to pay $30,000 for her son's private school.
Oh, it has to be in LA too, because I worked in school. They are expensive, and that's a semester probably or a year.
To be honest, when you're making a public claim about how you're underpaid, talking about certain privileges, I think weakens your argument.
Yep.
Because
sounds like you're living above your means.
exactly, like ultimately, the average person is probably not paying $30,000 a year, $2,500 a month to send their child to private school. They're just sending them to public school for free, and they're probably still struggling with that. So the moment you mention your personal decisions along with why you deserve more, kind of weakens your argument. Not to say that the argument is weak, but I just don't think she should have mentioned that, because now people are like, they're gonna focus on, well, why don't you just send your kid to public school? And then the argument goes down that path.
What charter school?
Charter school, whatever it is, but it's not about the school. So on the studio side, the studio spends maybe $250 million on a movie like this.
And they want to get that money back.
And they want to get that money back, and chances are it may not break even or make the money in box office. Again, Hollywood accounting is funky. They'll make money eventually, but for the most part, the biggest draw is that box office income. So yeah, sometimes it takes 5 or 6, maybe 10 movies to pay off 9 failures. But the studio is strategically aligning their finances to pay whoever it is to make them the largest return. So when you are financing a film and you put Brad Pitt in it and you put his face on the poster and you say this is a Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett movie, they're not doing that because they just respect Brad Pitt. They just look at him as a piece of meat, a product, and somebody who can sell their product,
His name carries a lot of weight, especially then.
Exactly. And probably still now, I think.
Oh yeah, he's one of the last
goated,
celebrities. That group, they're the last real
megastars.
Yeah, that we're ever gonna have.
So I don't think it's fair for her to say Brad Pitt got $20 million when ultimately, if the movie didn't make any money back, they're not gonna say it's because Taraji played his mom. They're gonna say it's because Brad Pitt must not be a star anymore and he's cut off. So when you compare yourself, I feel like you kind of have to do it apples for apples, and not, apples to oranges.
Because I feel like what she was getting at that was that's the white man, which they do kind of make more money than everybody else sometimes. But when it comes to films, you have to look at the what's the IMDb, the
star meter.
Call sheet. No. The who's number one on the call sheet? Who's the star? You have who's
the above the line people.
Yeah. So whoever's leading the movie. So for that movie, that's why I don't like that she compared it, because it was him leading that movie.
Right.
She was supporting. Right. So that comparison already is kind of like, well, why are you doing that? I believe that, and I know that box office, and for a long time, I know black people don't bring people to the movies, even though black folks go to the movies.
I think what they say now is that black people don't draw international audiences, which could potentially be true, because Tyler Perry doesn't distribute outside of America.
He's doing well for himself though inside
Exactly.
America. But I would say if it's a co-lead movie, right? I think Jessica Chastain did this when her and Octavia Spencer was in a film.
Yeah.
And Jessica Chastain was getting paid, I guess, a whole lot more than Octavia Spencer. But they were co-leading this movie.
Right.
It was both of them doing the press, both of them on the movie. With things like that, I think it's fair to be paid similar or almost the same.
Right.
I think that's just right. Especially when you're doing the same amount of work.
And Jessica, the amount
in a sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're doing the same, when I say same amount of work, if the movie is on my back and your back, you know what I'm saying? If it's my movie and that Octavia Spencer movie, you know what I mean? Benjamin Button was that Brad Pitt movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's what I mean. Then that's fair.
Yeah.
But when you have a clear star of the movie, this is this person's movie, then though you can't. You know,
Jessica Chastain also gave up part of her salary so that her and Octavia Spencer could have the same amount of money. So I don't necessarily believe that Taraji P. Henson is incorrect in what she's saying. I just think that when she presents information, it needs to be something that people can understand, because most people who she's complaining to are going to watch this on social media and they're just going to be like, you work in TV, you work in movies,
Right.
you're
You're
sending
unaware.
your kid to $30,000 schools. I'm poor. I don't have that option. And they're just going to just throw it away. And then you have outcomes like Color Purple, where not too many people are going to go watch it. Book of Clarence. You got like $2 or $3 million on a $40 million budget in this first weekend. I think celebrities have to kind of think about, and I get that she was very emotional in the moment.
Yeah, that was the thing.
She was crying and things like that. But you know, Hollywood is a funky place to try and make people feel for you, especially when you're doing a dream job that everybody wishes they could be. How many people wish that they could, I don't know, go do Empire and get $25,000 per episode, or
and she talked about that too. She said she had nothing lined up for it, which to me it just sounds like it was not just poor management, but poor leadership of your management. You have to be vocal with what you want. She's like, after Empire, there was nothing. There was nothing that I was like, well, what? And she said, I had to fire my whole team. But even with that team, maybe they were a bad team, but also you have to go in and like still advocate for yourself and say, hey, you know what? I need this set up. I want this set up. Can we get this meeting? I know we're on this Empire. Like, you still have to do some type of, you know, putting yourself out there, I think.
That sounds like victim blaming.
Okay, sometimes victims can be blamed.
I mean,
sometimes we make ourselves a victim. We do it to ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not necessarily blaming her. Well, no, I am. I think we all have some blame in our own successes and our misfortunes. I said some, and not every situation, but in some situations, we can be more proactive and get shit done. But I'm not in her life. I don't know. I was not on her team. But if you need somebody, hire me.
The genius speaks.
Girl. Whew. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't see Color Purple though because, and I love Fantasia. I'm just waiting for it to come on HBO Max. But I don't really like musicals.
Can you do me a favor real quick and slide your chair this way just a little tiny bit? Yeah. A little bit more. Yeah, cool. And then forward.
Take it back, man.
Yeah, perfect. All right, so why didn't you watch Color Purple?
Oh, I wasn't going to movies to see it. No way. I might see Origin. I don't like musicals. I mean, I like musicals. Do I like musicals? I would go see a live musical, but not every day. You ain't gonna see me just turn on a musical to watch because I just don't. But I love Fantasia. Like, I love Fantasia's voice so much, and I might see it. I'm sure I see it eventually, but it's not something that I was like, I gotta go see.
I'm gonna have you readjust one more time. Turn your chair slightly this way. Yeah, perfect.
Hear you hear me now,
Yes.
Father. That's from Tyler Perry. I know the preacher in that, Terrell.
Oh my gosh, why do you keep falling out of frame?
Oh, maybe because I keep leaning.
Right there. Good. Would you like a podcast? But I feel for Taraji. I feel for all the ladies. I found it very funny. I think Vivica A. Fox was like, "I'm good. Like, I didn't experience that." When TMZ asked her, is she?
Yeah,
Okay.
like a mystery show, something like that.
So I do feel for her, and I would love. I wish I could have the conversation to say what do you think is appropriate, because we often talk about things in such vague ways. Like, I didn't get enough. He got 20 million. I got 150,000. Well, what do we think is the right amount? And
only she can tell us that.
And yes. And another thing that I feel, when you're coming from the opposite side, you know, if anybody here has ever owned a business, you know how...
Anybody here?
Listen. Any of the listeners. If you've ever owned a company, you know that people have like high demands. You know, they want to get paid really well, and you know how difficult it is to get that money. And oftentimes you have multiple different types of calculations. Sometimes we call it market rate. how much you're going to pay a person and how much they deserve to get paid. And I would love to know if that's something that we need to think about. But lastly, I do think that as Black people who have come into some wealth, it's probably our duty the moment we step into some kind of wealth to invest it, so that way eventually we can own whatever it is that we're trying to do, and you can pay yourself what you think you deserve. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to be the same workers as Brad Pitt or as Leonardo DiCaprio, who can, do these big movies, get paid the multi-millions. Denzel, but Denzel doesn't get paid the same way that Leonardo gets paid.
Oh yeah, no.
Right?
So I don't know actually.
We don't have the ability to get those paychecks, which means that we do have to own more of the market space. We have to create more and find ways for us to be entrepreneurial leaders. Unfortunately, that's the cards that we're dealt with. So it's not only about supporting each other, but it really is about developing yourself into becoming something you may not want to be, but you have to surround yourself with people who can help you do that. Much like Kevin Hart, he owns his production company, Tyler Perry. I know everyone doesn't have that bone in them, but just think about it.
Viola Davis. She has
Viola Davis.
People get their own production company.
Yeah.
Or you become an executive producer on the show, which is another title that you can have.
But that's the same thing as like begging, right? Like,
no, not really.
No. I'm saying like
sometimes
sometimes you can get those roles, but then you don't get them sometimes, or maybe some people don't want to, facilitate those roles or whatever. But I'm just saying, when we own it and we're not asking for it, we get it on our own. It develops a different ability for us to succeed. I think Kevin Hart is the best example of that, because yes, he's going to act in his own movies.
As he should.
And he's going to get the executive role. He's going to make the decisions. But he may not have the same arguments. And again, Kevin Hart is a man. I know that we're talking about women.
Yeah, short man.
But I think unfortunately we're just dealt with the cards that say that we have to own versus just keep asking, because obviously
we have to make it happen.
Look at Color Purple, executive produced by Oprah, and it seems like Taraji still has some kind of tension.
I don't think it's that they've kind of cleared that up, but also Oprah is just putting her money behind the project.
We don't know
when you
that.
see executive producer, usually that's, especially if it's a celebrity name, it's the money. Like Harvey Weinstein was executive producer for a lot of them, so it was the money.
Yeah, but Harvey Weinstein owned the production company.
And Oprah she's from my understanding, she's putting her money behind it. Warner Brothers. That's what I'm saying. But that's what she and Taraji and all of them were saying on. I was saying it on TikTok. Or
from my understanding,
something.
it doesn't seem like Oprah put her money in. It seemed like they were using her name to market the film.
I think she put her money behind it.
No, because
I can't say what I heard that on, but I did hear that Oprah, that people went to blaming Oprah when she was just the executive producer, putting her money on it when they should have went to Warner Bros. And Taraji said that whenever they had a problem or issue, they would call Oprah. And somebody was like, well, they shouldn't have to call Oprah because she wasn't like working on the film. Her name was on because she was in the film, and she was an executive producer for the original Color Purple for Broadway. So she's been involved in Color Purple for a very long time. So I think she was, it's the wrong word I'm gonna use, overseeing it. I was going to say she was the overseer. She was kind of in more cases overseeing the project when come in and out, being those. Everybody want to get that job. They're a yes person. Like, oh, yeah, I like that. You know what I mean? I think it was kind of one of those, like...
Yeah. I mean, I do remember Oprah saying something along the lines of, this is what the studio gave us and blah, blah, blah. So she could have just been deflecting. I don't always think that the executive producer is putting their money behind it. They could also just be somebody who goes down the financial route of obtaining finances for the film, and they're not coming out of pocket. They're like, oh, I have this connection in China. They can get us $5 million, and then they pump that into the movie and whatever. But yeah, I mean, either way, it's a messed up situation, and I hope we don't sound like we're like victim blaming, But I do think that that down the line we could see more success coming from Taraji.
Yeah, and I think Taraji is Taraji P. Henson. She's a household name. I mean, the whole industry is becoming something different now, but you know, she's Taraji.